XJS was launched in the 70s, and when it was launched, everybody hated it. After the beautiful E-Type, it was disappointing to say the least, especially as early ones were usually finished in Midlands brown. But gradually this shape, like cheese, matured very nicely.
And you know what? These looks are actually a bit of an accident. You see those buttresses at the back? They're not actually supposed to be there at all. When the car was first designed, it was going to be mid-engined. But then they changed their mind and they thought, no, we'll put the engine in the front. But no one thought to take the buttresses off.
And yet, they're part of what makes it a masterpiece.
But there's something that puts me off. You see, in all its 21 years in production, Jaguar never made a good one.
In the beginning, it was built by work-shy lefties who spent more time standing around a brazier than they did loosely screwing your new car together, so it broke down all the time.
In fact, early XJSs were so bad that when British Leyland offered them to their senior managers as company cars, even they said no.
And at the end of its 21-year life, it still wasn't right.
I'll show you where Jaguar went wrong. This is a suspension bush, and it's made out of a really rubbish rubber, so it completely mucks up the feel of the car. This is an electrical connector. Now, there are hundreds of these on the XJS, and they're of a really poor quality. So after about 5 or 6 years, they all corrode, and the whole car dies. And it's the same all over the place. The door seals, they let water in, so the doors rust from the inside. The engine components are built down to a price and strangle all the power. Jaguar had the recipe for a perfect shepherd's pie, and then made it with dog meat.
This one, though, is different.
For a start, I've been driving it for several hours now, and everything still seems to be working. More to the point, though, it feels like no other XJS I've ever driven. This one feels fantastic.
That's because it's special. It's been given a once-over by a tiny Hampshire firm called Knowles Wilkins Engineering. Knowles Wilkins. You can just see the Spitfires on the office wall. Now, this is not a restoration job. It's something far cleverer. Modernisation. They take a good, used XJS and they turn it into the car it should have been.
They completely rebuild the suspension, the steering, the entire electrical system, and they find an extra 50 horsepower in that V12 engine. And when they've done all that, they retrim the interior and they put some lovely new paint on it. Now, the whole package will cost you about £35,000, which is a huge amount of money for an XJS, but it's an XJS that works. This is amazing. Now, I've driven loads of XJSs, but this is the first time I've ever really felt like I'm, involved in the process. This really nice sense that it's all really tightly set up. My dad had one of these, and I always wanted it to feel like this, but to be honest, it just didn't. It felt a bit like sitting on a sofa. And listen to this engine, this V12. This is just fabulous, doesn't that? Really lovely, distant rumble. That's so pucker. Of course, there are people, the sort of people who go to an auto jumble looking for a new bumper, who will say that this is wrong, this is interfering with Jaguar heritage. But I say, rubbish. This is a brilliant idea. All the character of the car is still here. All the funny touches, like these comedy instruments and these novelty stalks that move the mirrors around, and that huge bonnet. It's a bit like owning a 15th century house. You keep the thatch roof, you keep the leaded glass, but you fit modern central heating. You have one of those Smeg fridges. Of course you do, come on.
I love this car. It's a piece of England's heritage that's had the full National Trust treatment. After hundreds of lovely miles in this Jag, from Hampshire and through Wales, I've now come to Liverpool. I wanted to come here because self-made Scousers love their Jags. But then I remembered that none of the professional Scousers, Tarby, Scylla, McCartney, actually lives here. Well, maybe they should come home and have a look at this waterfront. That is a World Heritage Site, like Stonehenge and the Parthenon. So if ever there was a World Heritage car, this is it.